Welcome back to Comfort Breeds Complacency. This is episode 12. Today, we're joining my boy, Jayden Lee.
What's up, brother? How's it going?
Good, man. Good. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, but I'm having you in my house right now.
Exactly. So. You've been taking care of me the past couple days. Jayden's been showing me around Chilliwack where he lives and taking me on some hikes and saw some paragliders today and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Did a 4-minute cold plunge this morning. Yeah. Shivering my ass off, but
it was good. Great way to start the day.
Oh yeah, warming up at the fire afterwards. But just met Jayden. What was it? 2 months ago, kind of in person officially. A mutual friend that we met through another mutual friend kind of introduced us, and then we found out that we lived like 3 hours apart from each other. So it's been cool to kind of catch up a bit more. Just kind of saw each other at some events, but. Been sweet catching up. Yeah.
Nice to actually hang out and spend some one-on-one time together and get to know each other a little bit more.
Yeah, and getting to know you, you have a pretty unbelievable story. So I was wondering if you could just kind of run through, I mean, your whole, you got a good story, man. So just start kind of from the beginning and we'll work through it together.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, I'm 24. I'm from Chilliwack, British Columbia. As a kid, I was never really into team sports. Was always kind of into the extreme sports, so skateboarding, BMXing, biking, snowboarding, scootering, and I actually found out that I was the best at scootering and ended up getting like sponsored for scootering and yeah, I got flown around to competitions in the U.S. and all that kind of stuff, which was actually kind of cool. People think of Razors or like Razor scooters as like little scooters for kids, but it was actually like a competitive sport that you could get into. And so, yeah, that was like kind of something like one of my biggest, like my first big goals to like kind of work towards as a kid. And I think just kind of when you're in extreme sports and you're learning tricks and stuff, it kind of, you have to try a trick for say like 8 hours a day and you fail and you fail and you fail and you have to keep getting up and keep going back at it. And I think that really kind of just instilled that in my head of just like failing and keep going and kind of working towards big goals. So my biggest goal was kind of get sponsored by this company. And so, in my story, I'm going to talk a lot about kind of the highs and lows in my life and how like to stay humble in the highs and hopeful in the lows. But after kind of going to some competitions in the States for scootering, I was getting noticed and whatnot. And then I finally got a call with the team manager for this company. We hopped on FaceTime and yeah, he kind of announced that I was on the team, which was like a huge dream goal of mine. And then 3 hours later, I got a call from the hospital because I wasn't really feeling well before that. I kind of skipped that out of that a little bit, but wasn't really feeling well. I went for a blood work that day, actually. And so the 3 hours after the call, my mom got a call saying that I had leukemia, which is a type of blood cancer. So,
damn, man, that must have been. What does it feel like getting that news as a kid who's probably like hopeful, looking forward to the future, and just like feeling off or whatever?
So like I was a super active kid. Like I was at the skate park all day every day, and just like I said, after that summer I was competing competitively, and then that kind of after that fall and winter, and this call was in January, I was just kind of feeling out of shape and was feeling tired all the time and wasn't feeling quite like myself. So I thought I was out of shape, so I kept on kind of going on runs by myself and eating healthier, but I couldn't even run like 20 minutes without even like wanting to pass out. And so I was kind of asking to sit out in PE class a bit more, and my teacher was like, "Are you okay? Like you're looking a little green around the gills." And I was always like, "Nah, I'm fine. Pushed it off type of thing. And then I kept on sitting out in PE class, so he finally kind of called my mom and was like, "Hey, Jayden's not looking so good." And she kind of said,
that like not normal behavior sitting out of PE class?
Yeah, like I was always like the one, like I was always first in the 10Ks and I was always giving it my 100%, right? So it was different. And so that's kind of when he reached out when things weren't normal. So so then after that, she kind of replied and said the same thing and was like, Jayden's been kind of just pushing it off because that was just who I was. And then, that was the day that I said that I got that call about the sponsorship. And then I went for blood work in that morning, and then mom got the call from the hospital that night. And it's weird, it's one of those things you always hear about, like especially I was 15, almost 16 when I got diagnosed, and so didn't really understand it completely. And it was one of those things where you always hear about like cancer, like, but you never really know of many people that have it, or never really think it's going to happen, hit you close to home, and then it does, and you're kind of just like, oh my gosh, like, yeah. So
what was like your initial reaction to hearing that news?
Yeah, so like I was playing that night that my mom got the call. I was playing Xbox with my friends downstairs. I was, like I said, I was like just 16. I was playing Call of Duty or something, and then I guess that my mom got a call at 10 o'clock at night, and the hospital was like, "You got to bring Jayden to the hospital right now." And she's like, "Why? It's like 10 o'clock at night." And then they were like, "Well, we got to do more testing." And I guess they weren't supposed to tell you over the phone, but they kind of like needed to put some pressure on her, like to bring me. And so I guess they told her on the phone. So she comes downstairs and she's like, "We got to go to the hospital." And I kind of said the same thing. I'm like, "Why? It's like 10 o'clock at night." And she's like, "Oh, they just want to do more testing." So anyways, I go off Xbox, go upstairs, and I see my mom's boyfriend like pacing back and forth like he saw a ghost. And I was like, "Hey, this is weird." And then like 10 minutes later, the door of my mom's house downstairs opened up, and it was my dad walking with my sister. And I'm like, okay, now this is super weird. Like my dad doesn't come to my mom's house. They were split up at the time. And so anyways, we left my sister with my mom's boyfriend there, and then me, my dad, and my mom got in the car. And then my dad, basically on the drive there, he was like, "Do you know what leukemia is?" And then just kind of started bawling my eyes out and didn't really know what was going to happen or didn't really know what to feel. But yeah, that was kind of how I found out. So.
And when you found that out, what were the next steps taken forward as far as like treatment or more diagnosis or tests or everything?
Yeah, so that night I went to the Chilliwack General Hospital and talked to the doctor there, and they basically kind of gave me a rundown of what was going to happen, and I had to get transferred to Children's Hospital that night in Vancouver. So basically after they kind of went through the diagnosis and what it was, they kind of told me to go home, pack my bags, and my mom drove me to the hospital that night. It was like 1 a.m. and did the hour-long drive. It was pretty doom and gloom to Children's Hospital, and then yeah, I started intense chemotherapy within a couple days of that, and my first stint in the hospital from that night forward was about 8 days, and then I started the intense chemotherapy, and I did intense chemo for about a year, and so I was in and out of the hospital that entire year. Like I was in for that first 8 days, came home for a week, then was in for like 32 days, and then kind of was in and out for an entire year. And then after your first full year, and that's kind of, I was cancer free after that. And so after your first full year, with the type of leukemia that I had, it's this protocol to do chemo for another 3.5 years still. So I only got the intense chemo for a year. And then after the year, I was on something called maintenance for the last 2.5. And so I just had to get IV chemo once a month. And then I took about 15 or 16 chemo pills every day for that 2.5 years. And so I got diagnosed on January 28th, 2015, and then finished chemo on May 23rd, 2018.
Damn. How does I know you were saying that when the nurses and things were administering it to you, they're in like full suits, right? And it can't like touch them, but it's going into you. Like, how's that?
Yeah, that was like such a weird thing. Like, I'm hooked up to an IV machine, and the nurses that are giving me the chemo, they're in full like eye protective gear and gloves and like garbage bag hazmat looking suit things, like so that they can't get it on them. Meanwhile, like I'm hooked up to this thing and it's going in me, and they start it and you can just feel it going through. Like it's just cold, and so that's kind of like a little bit of a bit like holy crap, like pretty scary, but. It's weird though, like I was only like 15, 16 years old, so I didn't really kind of know what to think at the time either, right? Because I didn't really have a full understanding of it all. I was kind of just going with the motions, right?
Mm-hmm. And how does that affect like school life or your energy outside of things or friendships or all your being in the hospital for so long and then coming back out? Did like friendships get affected or?
Yeah, it was tough because like that was my first year of high school, and so I had to do school online in the hospital. I got sick halfway through grade 10 and then came back to school halfway through grade 12. And yeah, like I mean, when you're in high school, like all your friends are kind of starting to party and kind of experimenting with things, and so I came back to high school in grade 12, and a lot of my friends that I grew up with were kind of into partying and stuff, which is fine, but I obviously couldn't do that because I was getting chemo and still going through it, right? So it was a bit of a mind thing for sure, and I was definitely down a lot. But it was just it was what I was going through, and I didn't really know it, and I was only 16, right? So I didn't really know what to think or didn't really know how to like really understand all the emotions that I was feeling.
what were kind of the things that kept you going in times like that? Or like, what did you do or think about or tell yourself to like keep moving forward?
It sounds crazy and it sounds kind of dumb, but I was like so obsessed with scootering at that time that like because I got sponsored literally the day that I found out, I was like, there's nothing more that I want to do than like to get back to where I was with that. So it sounds dumb, but it's like, it's just one of those things that I was obsessed with now with like the running and stuff and with endurance, like you kind of get that feeling. And so for me, I had that thing that was giving me motivation and drive during that time, which was nice. Right.
Yeah, so passion. Yeah. And what was it like getting that? I know you said it was kind of bittersweet when you got the notification that you're cancer free, but you still have to deal with the chemo for X amount of years after that.
Yeah, like I was cancer free fairly quickly, which was awesome. But with that protocol, because leukemia is so high risk for it to come back, they still have to do chemo for another 2.5 years. So it was like this bittersweet of like, yes, I'm probably going to survive this, but at the same time, I still have to go through this shitty treatment plan to get through that, right? And it takes a toll on your body. And so the remaining 2.5 years were tough, and it was crazy. Like after I finished chemo, like once I got off of it and I wasn't taking the pills or getting the IVs anymore, like after a couple weeks, I felt like this like total like shift in my energy, and just like it's crazy like the effects that it has on you.
It's literally like poison almost, right?
Yeah.
Killing it from the inside out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then moving on past when you're done the chemo and everything, you want to get back to the hospital, right? Is that when the first 100K run came about into thinking about?
Yeah. So after I got sick, I knew I wanted to do something to kind of give back to children's, and so I was going through a tough time in my life then, and my mom passed away in 2020, and I wasn't in kind of the greatest mindset after that, and I needed kind of a goal to work towards to get myself out of my rut. So me and my friend Cam were hanging out on this couch one night, and we were kind of just shooting the crap, and he was like, we were trying to brainstorm of an idea to raise money for children's, and I kind of found out that I was sick through running, like I said, and Cam was kind of getting into running himself, and I was kind of getting back into it a little bit, and he was like, you should run to children's, like, and where I live is about 100 and a bit kilometers to Children's Hospital, and so I was like, screw that, like I've never ran more than 10K, there's no way I could ever do that. And so that was the end of 2020, that was the end of 2020, sorry. And so then the next day I went out on a 10K run. I hadn't ran one since like before I got sick, and I did it in like under an hour, and I was like, yeah, that was like pretty decent, like pretty decently quick. And so I texted my buddy back, and I was like, let's do it. And he was like, do what? And I was like, let's run to Children's. So yeah, that was that run. That was October 2nd, 2021. Me, Cam, and a bunch of my friends, we ran from here in Chilliwack to the BC Children's Hospital. It was 103 kilometers, and we raised over $125,000 for the hospital.
And what was your initial goal again?
20. My initial goal was 20,000, and that just like goes to show like whatever you think you're capable of, like you can 10x that, because like Cam was like, oh, we should do like 121,000, and I was like, there's no way we'd ever be able to raise that much money, and he's like, just try it, why not? Like if you don't make it, you don't make it, but at least you tried, right? So he's a big mentor in my life, and he pushed me to do that, and we ended up exceeding it. So
what was that like getting to the hospital after that?
That was one of those 10 moments in my life. Like that was like, there was no better feeling than like crossing that finish line, and just like, it's indescribable, and I'm sure you know that feeling with just like your swims and stuff, and it was, what I realized afterwards was like, yeah, it was cool, we ran a long ways, and yeah, we raised a lot of money, but there was like kids that came down from their hospital rooms and were cheering me on, and this kid that was too sick to come down, but he was in like the 8th floor of Children's, he made me a sign in the window that said like, thank you, Jayden. And I realized that like it was more about giving those kids hope that like I was in their shoes at one point, and like now you can turn that around and actually do something with it. So for me, that was kind of the coolest part about it, and I didn't really get that kind of like, I didn't understand that till afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, but you never really do know the reach or impact you can have on somebody if you might only get them coming up to you like one every 10, 20, 30 people, right, that you might actually touch. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool to see.
And that kid that made me the sign on the 8th floor, he unfortunately ended up passing away like a year later, but that is like, it really just put that into perspective for me. Like there's kids that won't get a chance to kind of do what I did, and to not take the gift that I've been given to kind of be healthy again and to be able to give back, right? So,
and then you never know how much the quality of life changed while they were alive because you gave them hope or things like that,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
As well as the ones that do make it. So,
yeah.
And then after your first run, the 100K, you were saying you were feeling pretty good getting out of your rut.
Yeah.
And then you had another devastating life.
Yeah. So
tragedy.
again, like just like the highs and lows of life, like I said, like kind of like finishing chemo, and then like I'm a real estate agent, so starting my real estate career, and I bought my first home, and then it was like my mom passed away that year, and then I was like I needed a goal to work towards, and so that was kind of the thing for my run, right? And then I do my run, and I finally feel like I'm on top of the world again and kind of in a better headspace and stuff. And then about a month and a half later, me and 5 of my buddies, we went on a trip to Dallas, Texas to go watch the Cowboys game and go watch some football and have a good boys weekend. And it's a long story, I won't get into it, but basically like on the first night we got there, our one buddy got in a car with a drunk driver and passed away while we were down there. And so that was literally like a month later. And so that was just another one of those things of like staying humble in the highs and hopeful in the lows, because I was on that high again. And then a month and a half later, I was brought back down to rock bottom. And I was like, after that, I was just in like the worst spot I've ever been. I was like, why does this stuff keep happening to me? And I was just in such a dark place in my life and kind of lost sight of everything that I had worked towards and kind of got through with my past run. So.
Yeah. And what was the thing that kept you going through that time, right?
During that time, I didn't really honestly, like, it was kind of like the good people that I have in my life. Like I'm super lucky with the amazing people that I do have in my life. And I'm like a strong believer in that you are who you hang out with. And so, like I had 3 other buddies that were on that trip with me. And so, that I came back with, and that we all support each other through that time. And yeah, it wasn't until kind of that following year that I was able to kind of go on some trips and met our mutual friend that kind of got me back in the right headspace. So
yeah, and that mutual friend's Devin Levash. So
shout out Dev.
All right. But yeah, how'd you get linked in with Dev? If people don't know Devin, he's a entrepreneur, he's a wild man, he's a athlete, Dev's everything. So
yeah, so like I said, I was in kind of that rough spot in my life, and I had followed Dev for years, and he was actually, when me and Cam were hanging out that night, and came up with the idea to run to Children's, I had actually showed Cam like the video of Dev doing his bear crawl that he did. He bear crawled a marathon, for people that don't know. And I was like, that's kind of how we were like, oh, we should do something kind of cool, like endurance wise, and like a fitness challenge or something. And so I had followed Dev for years, and he was doing this thing where you could book a Zoom call with him for like 20 minutes. It was like $100 or whatever. And so we just hopped on the call. I wanted to pick his brain about business and just how he got into all the things that he's doing. And then at the end of the call, I was like, dude, thanks for doing this bear crawl and inspired me to do my run. And yeah, it's kind of, he was like, dude, like, and he loved it. And so he's like, let's keep in touch. And then kind of showed me about all day running and invited me to the first all day running event, and then went to his place in Austin afterwards and kind of went to those 2 events. And I met so many like-minded people like yourself, and just kind of realized like what I valued in life. And because I remember like the night before my mom's funeral, I was like drunk on the floor, like right there. And I had all these things, like I was making good money in my career already, and I had my first house, but I realized like none of those things truly matter if you're not happy inside. And so that trip really just put into perspective for me of like what I really valued in life, of experiences and relationships and friendships and doing things and making those memories that are going to last a lifetime. Yeah,
I know what Dev's done is pretty special, and bringing all these people together. And same with me when I went out and met him and the networking group he had and everything. And yeah, you meet these people who might not have the same goals, but they have the same mindset towards things. You can piggyback off each other and introduce each other. And we were out at dinner one night and talking to our friend Jolene, who knew you. And then I just met her, and she had mentioned you. That was the first time I heard about you. And she was saying, oh, he's doing a run. and he's from like Chilliwack. And then I remember just hearing about it, and then at the most recent event, the Running Man event, it was after your most recent run, but Devin gave a shout out to 1,000 people about you and your story, and that's kind of when we met in person for the first time, that event. But that was 2 weeks after your most recent endeavor, which was even bigger than your last run.
Yeah. So that one was, wasn't planning on doing like another run again. And I was like, the 100K was like, we raised a lot of money and there was so many people involved, and it was so cool. And it was like that once in a lifetime thing. And I'm like, how do you recreate something like that? And I didn't really want to try in case like, I didn't want to be like let down if it wasn't as good or whatever. So I wasn't planning on doing it again. And obviously like when I was in that rough place again mentally after my buddy Aaron passed away in 2022, I was just like, wasn't really thinking about doing something like that again. And then I heard that, with leukemia, I still had to get checked, my blood work done every 6 months for 5 years after I finished chemo. Cause if the leukemia is going to come back, it's the highest risk for it to come back within 5 years. And so for the last 5 years, I've still been getting my blood work done at Children's every 6 months. And they told me I actually had my last checkup this past October. And I was like, I kind of didn't really think much of it at first. And then I got this idea in my head. I was like, oh, it'd be badass to like do that run again, but go for my last blood work appointment and then run home this time to kind of close out my journey of this being done at the hospital, finishing cancer, and then it's kind of closing out just my journey over the last couple of years and the struggles that I've had. And so I just wanted to do it more for myself this time. And that's why I decided to do it again, was because I didn't care about necessarily the outcome or if it was as big as last time or what it looked like. It was more about just doing it for myself. And so, I decided from my last blood work appointment at Children's, I was going to run 100 miles back home, made the route longer. And, I wanted to set a goal to raise 150,000 this time, which was obviously lofty. But on October 6th, it was crazy. We had like a crew of like 30 people. We had a whole police escort. We had like friends on bikes and running, and we had a motorhome, and it was like this convoy. It was crazy. But we ran 100 miles from the hospital from that last appointment. And it took about 23 hours. It ended up being 103 miles because the route got a little bit messed up. And then we raised, I just brought a check to Children's last week for just over $85,000. So between the two runs, just over 210 grand.
That's unreal.
It sounds crazy, just like those words coming out of my mouth just don't even sound real. So I'm super grateful to be able to be in a position to give back to the hospital now. So,
and all that good that's going to come from that comes from one decision, right?
Yeah.
Just one decision to like take a leap of faith that you're kind of scared about, but you're going to go for it.
Yeah. It's just crazy. How these such small decisions, like all of this, like $210,000 donated to the hospital, literally started from like a joke of me and my friend hanging on the couch here one night being like, you should run to Children's. And that's where it came from, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when I've finished long projects that have meant a lot to me, like years long projects. It's really emotional. It's those like rare moments in life that are hard to beat, especially when your friends and family are around. What was like finishing not just the run, but like putting a stamp on that whole journey from like diagnosis to end point? If you can like bottle that up into a feeling, what was that?
It's hard to put into words. I think it was just really special for everyone. Like so many people on my run like set new personal bests. Like one of my buddies had never ran more than 10K and ended up doing 60. My sister had never ran a 10K, she ran 10K. And it's like it was much bigger than just myself, just for everyone else to be able to push themselves. And obviously my mom, who passed away, was a big reason for a lot of the things that I do. And her mom, so my grandma, she's actually a runner, and so she was able to be a part of it, and she's in her late 60s and she crushed 20 kilometers of it. So it's hard to put into words, but I think it was much bigger than even just like myself and my stuff. And obviously I was selfishly doing it for me and just to kind of close out my journey. But I think it impacted a lot more people personally than I realized it would.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you were in the planning stages of this, was there a lot of help from other people in planning, or were there a lot of logistical points all on you, or like?
I pretty much did plan the entire thing. The only thing that I really had help with was I had a contact that helped me set up the police escort, and so she was a big help in setting up that. But other than that, I had to get the insurance for the event for the police escort. I had to kind of submit the entire route details and make this whole safety plan and submit it to them. And other than that, like, there wasn't much to it other than figuring out the route and planning that. And then, we had the entire escort, and shout out to Jolene for getting us the RV. She rented the RV for us. And it all came together. Like it went way better than I thought it would. Like the 100K, I definitely struggled because I didn't really train properly and stuff. But literally the 100-mile run about a couple months ago now literally couldn't have gone any better.
And how, I know you talked about training for the 100K. You did intense training for the 100-mile, right?
Yeah.
How did that affect you mentally, physically? Like,
yeah.
What did you learn through that process? Because I know that can be, we were talking about like the lonely runs by yourself, and like the training on your own can be, especially when you're thinking towards like the final goal, it's hard to be focused on everything that needs to come, the process up to there, but it's really important to be like process oriented, goal motivated. But how did you find that solo training all the time? And
yeah, because my first run, like I said, I had never ran more than 10K when I decided I was going to do this. And so we just kind of wung it. Like my grandma who runs, she kind of helped, she's done a couple 100K. So she kind of helped me out with a little bit of a training plan. But I like I said, I hadn't ran more than 10Ks. So I wasn't used to running long distances at all. So it took quite a toll on my body, and I didn't really train properly or have the nutrition or the knowledge or anything like that, or any recovery. I didn't do any recovery things at all. Like I was like, oh, I didn't really, my grandma, like she made me like a little plan and was like, oh, we'll leave a couple weeks buffer for any injuries. I'm like, what, how can I injure myself? Like, I'm not going to break my leg running. I didn't realize like all the small, like I just had no knowledge of anything. And whereas this time around, after doing the 100K and doing some half marathons and marathons and stuff since then, and getting hooked up with my running coach, shout out to Ryan, he made me an entire training plan, and it was very intense. Like it was hours and hours every single week of running, and my peak weeks, about a month and a bit before my run, I would do in 3 weeks. I would rest Monday. I would do 2-hour run Tuesday, 2-hour run Wednesday, 2-hour run Thursday, rest Friday, 6 hours Saturday, 2 hours Sunday. And I repeated that for 3 weeks. And when you go out on those 6-hour runs by yourself, like we were talking about, like I found that harder than my actual run, because my run, I had 30 of my friends and we were just having a blast. Whereas like running for 6 hours by yourself on a Saturday, like sucks. But, what I learned from both of these runs, and probably the biggest thing that I've learned through them, is that like at 60K in my first run on the 100K, my body was done. Like my legs were cramping up. I didn't really know how I was going to do it, but it's your mindset that gets you through. And so it's pushing yourself. And on those days that you don't want to do it, on those Saturdays you have to run for 6 hours, it's the mindset of getting through it. And so it's cool because it applies to so many other areas of your life, whether that's your personal life or your business, but just that mindset is everything, right?
Yeah. I agree 100%. Once you kind of see the way or learn the lessons in one thing, you can utilize it, the task at hand, for whatever aspect of life. It makes a big difference, I feel like.
Yeah. And I saw this like thing on a podcast one time. It was talking to us about like how like in endurance athletes, a lot of them have gone through some sort of trauma or some sort of painful experience in their life. And the reason why they love endurance so much is because of that mindset to push through hard things. And so I feel like you can relate to that a lot too, and just the pushing through, your mindset pushing through the hard things.
Yeah, I think you definitely grow with adversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of wondering, what do you think were the differences, if any, in the lessons you learned through your voluntary like suffering, like the runs that you did, or the involuntary, like going through the cancer, treatment and your whole journey there, or losing your mom or your friend, like what lessons were there different, or is going through that adversity you learn the same lessons?
Yeah, I don't think I really learned. Like, I didn't learn as much until like kind of the last year, and it was kind of like surrounding myself with those people that we talked about. And because I think, like I said, when I was sick, I didn't really know what to think because I was so young and I didn't really know how to handle my emotions. And then after my mom passed away, I didn't really know how to deal with adversity. I kind of just like put my head back down, started working, and I was like, I need to set a big goal, and just kind of like that first 100K was just kind of like a band-aid on top of it. I didn't actually know how to like deal with my problems. And so after Aaron passed away, like after my last run, I spent that entire year just working on myself and healing and surrounding myself with the right people and just working on my health and my wellness and my mental state, and just learning the tools to deal with adversity. And so that's what made me want to, like, once I knew those tools and learned all that, I was like, that's when I was like, hey, I think I want to do this again, because I know more about it now, and I know how much of an impact it was going to have on me. And so that's why I think it was a bit different this time. And that's what I learned from it this time. And not that I want any adversity, obviously, to happen, like bad things to happen ever again, but I know they'll come, and that's inevitable. But now I have the tools to actually deal with that adversity.
Yeah. If you forge those tools voluntarily, when it comes involuntarily, they'll be in place to utilize.
Yeah. And so that's why I think the difference between last run and this run was, because last time I think it was just a band-aid to put over top of my problems, whereas this time I actually worked on my problems, worked on myself, and realized like what this meant, or what this run was going to like actually mean for me.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know like an awesome dude linked in with Devin, Johnny Martin.
Yeah.
He had one thing I really took away from him. He's saying, like, has anybody here made the same mistake twice? He was like, yeah, pretty much everybody. It's like, okay, you don't learn from experience, you learn from reflecting on the experience, right?
Yeah.
Coming back from all the adversity you face, plus the highs of finishing a run and everything, moving forward in your life, do you take active steps to reflect, like journaling, or is it more just kind of intangible, like inside you?
No, I do a lot of things now. Like I kind of like I wake up. I wake up every morning like just before 5, and I read a book, like a kind of usually like a self-help book, and journal sometimes, and then I go cold plunge and go to the gym and do all those things to better myself, and listen to podcasts and watch movies, and everything that I'm consuming is in one way or another to better myself. And so I think healing is like a never-ending journey, and so we always kind of just want to continue to work on that, and I think that's important for everyone.
Yeah, as well as meeting those new people that can take that step with you in your life. How important do you think it is? Like, I know how many you've said you met through Devin, and I'm the same. There's people, if you had told me 4 months ago or 3 months ago, I'd know people I know now. I just didn't know them then, and meeting them through Devin and everything, it's actually crazy. But how important do you think it is to, even if it's an investment that might not look on paper as like type 1 fun in the minute, but how important do you think those investments are to put yourself in positions to meet people, to get lucky, to... Oh
yeah, it's priceless. Like you can't put a price tag on those things, and it's like 75% of the people that were with me on my run were people that I've met through going through these events, and it's like, yeah, some of them are an investment, but it's like you can't put a price tag on that. And everyone that you meet at those events is there to do the same thing and better themselves. And when you surround yourself with people like that, you're going to become that. And so now, like, even though everyone kind of lives all over the place, we were talking about that earlier, it's like those are the people that I talk to every single day. And it's like, if I'm dealing something or if I have a problem, like, I'm going to call Coach in Las Vegas, or I'm going to call Matt in Austin, or I'm going to call you in Kelowna. Like, regardless of how far away from each other, we have these relationships now that we can always help each other out and better ourselves together. And you can't put a price tag on that.
I feel like a lot of those relationships come in like shared struggling. Like doing something physical together, or cold plunging, which sucks in the moment, but you get out and you get to fire up after. And I think it's cool doing that adversity stuff together.
Well, it's like, that's how you build a relationship with someone. Like if me and you just would have like went out for drinks and just had dinner, like, and met one night and just did that, like we weren't going to make as good of a relationship as we did like the last couple of days. Like when you first got here, we had a 2-hour run. We almost did a half marathon. And then this morning we went cold plunging, and then we went on a hike. And so it's like, by doing hard things, you're going to build such a deeper, more meaningful connection with people.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, you're a real estate agent. How has these skills and lessons you've learned through all this stuff helped you in your career, or like talking to people every day like you do?
Yeah, like I think just now it's like people can, like I'm very active on social media, and I document what I do every day on social media. Like I read a self-help book every morning called The Daily Stoic, and it's just like little life lessons every day. It's just a little one page, but I post that and people love it. And I think just people see the way that I'm living my life now, and I think it helps a lot of people. And it's applied to my business in the ways of like the real estate market. It's so up and down, and you're going to deal with good markets, you're going to deal with shitty markets, but it's about like your mindset during those shitty times, and dealing with that adversity and coming back from it and staying positive. And that's why doing hard things in anything, whether that's business, that could apply to someone might not be that athletic, but they might have a really great mindset in business, but they could take that and do something like physically active with it, right? And so it doesn't matter what you're doing, but if you have that mindset of that you can push through hard things, it'll apply to all the different areas of your life. And so for me, it's helped me in my business, it's helped me with endurance, it's helped me with my personal life and like my mental health. And yeah, it's you can't put a price tag on it, like I said.
100%.
It's better than running. It's cheaper than any counseling will ever.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Self-help counselor in your own head.
Yeah.
What do you got moving forward for athletic goals?
Yeah. I don't really have something big on the calendar yet. I want to get more into trail running because of just like where I live, and you saw that like there's so many trails around here. So I'm going to sign up for a 50K trail race next year and a 100K trail race. So I mean, those are still obviously really big. And yeah, just kind of go around, do some marathons with some friends in the US, and just adventure and travel and support you on your next adventures, and just keep surrounding myself with awesome people that are challenging themselves and pushing each other.
Yeah, I think it's cool that even meeting all these people now, we have more people you can trust, have the same mindset that can help you on your endeavors, right?
Yeah. What
you do next, I'll be there. And you said what I do next, you'll be there. So yeah, that's super cool.
And it's like that's what's worth it. And like, and when we look back and when 20 years from now, when we look back on 2023, it's like what Jesse talks about. It's like, we're not going to remember how much money we made, but it's like, it's about building your life with like experiences and building your life resume, because I'm not going to remember how much money I made in 2023, but I'm going to remember that I ran 100 miles and raised $85,000 for Children's Hospital. Like you can't take those experiences away from each other. Yeah. So
yeah, those undeniable moments. The 10 out of 10s.
10 out of 10s.
Yeah, chasing those rare moments. It's a good pursuit in life.
But and shout out to Colin O'Brady. This is something that he says a lot too. It's like you can't have the 10s without the 1s too. And that's about the staying humble and the highs and hopeful and the lows, because I wouldn't have had a lot of these 10s that I'm having now if it wasn't for those 1s and those low moments that I had, right? Because those are what made me do those 10s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, those change for everybody. Like the hardest thing you've been through is the hardest thing you've been through, right? That's why some people are have a lot more adversity and able to get through more things because they've been through more, right?
Yeah, and that's tough too. It's like everyone goes through things in life and everyone handles things differently. And like sometimes I'll share my story with someone and they'll be like, oh, like I can't even compare what I've been through to like what you've been through. But I'm like, no, like don't look at it that way. Like everyone goes through things in life and everyone handles things differently. Like that person could have got bullied as a kid and it could affect them more to this day than my stuff has, right? Like everyone's got their own experiences and how they deal with it.
Yeah, 100%. What would you say to somebody, maybe like somebody who was a kid going through what you went through, or just anybody in general hoping to be a success? They might not be where they're at in life, but they want to keep striving. What advice would you
I think if you, whatever you want to do, you can always do it if you put your mind to it. And if you manifest it, and if you set a goal, if you want it bad enough, you can achieve it. Like I said, like going back to the beginning of my story, like it was my dream to be sponsored by this scooter company. And I know that sounds a little bit dumb now, but it's like I would work my ass off every day as a little kid, going to the skate park for 8 hours a day and not giving up. And then I was like, I want to become a realtor at 19 years old when I still lived at my dad's house, and everyone kind of like laughed at me, and I made it. And then it's like I said I wanted to run 100 kilometers after not running 10, and I did it. And so if you put your head down and you work hard enough, you literally can do everything you put your mind to.
Yeah, 100%. When you had that drive as a kid, do you think that's something you learned from parents, or do you think that's something that you have in you, or you learn from different motivators, or like where do you think that comes from?
I don't think, like, looking back, it's cool that I had that experience as a kid with the scootering, because I didn't really realize how much it meant then. But now looking back, it's like, I don't think I necessarily learned it from someone, but it's just like when you're passionate about something, like find something that makes you passionate, and it's like you'll go to no end to fulfill your dreams with it, right?
Yeah. Kind of like think about the life you want with your passion and work backwards from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, hell yeah, man. Appreciate you talking with me here. It's been fun hanging out with you the past couple of days, and I'm excited for the future and what we'll be able to get up to. So
get up to some crazy shit.
Oh yeah, buddy. Well, this has been episode 12 of Comfort Breeds Complacency. My man, Jayden Lee. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, man.
Keep it not so bad.